Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to my podcast where you can gain insight on my perspective. My name is Hayden, and this is episode 24 of 24 lessons I've learned in my 24 years of life. I cannot believe that this is the final episode. I feel like I've been doing this for so long, but it's also felt like such a short amount of time. I'm ready to conclude the series and work on other projects and continue to learn and grow on my journey. Before I get into this, I wanted to thank everybody for joining me along this journey and listening to the podcast and reaching out whenever you had something to say, whether you related to an episode or whether I helped you in some way, shape, or form. Your feedback really means a lot to me, and I'm happy that I've been able to put this out for you guys. So thank you for taking a few moments out of your day to see life from my perspective. Let's get into this final episode. Knowledge is power. When I went to school, I wasn't fond of it. And the only things that I really enjoyed was recess, seeing my friends, and eating. Aside from that, I wasn't interested in learning. I didn't like the way that I was being taught things. Felt that the way in which I was being taught things kind of crushed my creative soul. But I did learn a lot, and I'm grateful for the experiences that I had when I was in school. I was always learning a bunch of stuff that I didn't care about, and so that's why I didn't think learning was fun and why I didn't care to obtain a lot of knowledge, unless it was the library. See, I hated reading as a kid, but when it came to going to the library throughout the week, there were two dog books. There was a dog training book, and there was a bringing a dog home for the first time book, and I would read those two religiously because I really wanted a dog and my parents never let me get one until I was 14. Then found a loophole in our agreement, and now I have Max. And I've had Max for 11 years. I tried to get another dog recently, and it didn't work. So that's on being an adult and living with your parents. Since I read those books religiously, it genuinely prepared me to have the knowledge that I did have at age 14. And even all the times that I spent on my friend's farm learning about the dog's behavior and watching the dogs give birth to the puppies and learning about the puppies and when they open their eyes and when they can hear and how they learn, how they walk, all the way to I got dog training books, and then I started training Max, and then I started watching things on YouTube, and I started educating myself because I found a passion within doing that. That was something that interested me so much that I wanted to absorb all the knowledge that I could on it. And that's when I kind of realized that I loved learning. It's just the things that were being taught to me in school I did not find interesting, therefore I didn't want to learn it. I didn't have a lot of knowledge pertaining to a lot of topics. I bring up the example of the dog because my life kind of revolves around canines and their psychology and behavior, because that's something I'm passionate about and something I'm building a career out of. So me talking about learning and absorbing that knowledge when I was younger and then getting my first dog at 14, that prepared me to be right where I'm at now, which I'm extremely grateful for, because fast forward to last year, I began studying canine psychology and behavior through an academy. I got my certificate after I completed the program, and then the trainer and behaviors that I'm learning under has a continuous learning program where he updates it all the time, so there is never not information that I can absorb. I always have access to the knowledge that I care to learn about and to develop skills on and to enhance my skills on. And this is just something I'm really, really, really passionate about. And it's something that helped me find my spark, is learning to love gaining the knowledge and absorbing it and learning. And now I have my own dog training business, side hustle, if you will, because it's not a full-blown business, but it is my side hustle because I do have a full-time job, which is kind of part-time right now, but we won't talk about that. So yeah, it's a full circle moment to remind myself how powerful knowledge is, because without learning what I did when I was younger, I kind of wouldn't be in the field that I'm in today. I don't believe that I would be. I feel like I would have gone down a different path, but that's when I started staying true to myself and following that fire that ignited in me when I started learning so rapidly about the things that I loved and cared about. Because the things that were put before me, I didn't give two shits about. So I didn't want to learn it. I didn't feel that it was necessary to learn, so I didn't have the best grades in school. Even in college, I did get to choose my classes, so I was more fascinated in learning what was being taught to me. But then I had the boring, mundane classes that I was like, this is really hard, and that's what made it hard, was not liking what I was learning or not caring about what I was learning. So that makes a big difference. So knowledge has a lot of power. I'm so passionate about gaining knowledge because I see the ramifications it has on my life. I thought that I wanted to stop learning a while ago. And I'm like, well, I know all that I could know, I guess. You don't know what you don't know. And that made me want to keep learning. That made me want to keep branching out and learning a variety of different things. Let me find more of my interests or hobbies and let me focus on that. So just as I said, I didn't like subjects in school, so I didn't want to learn about it. This went for the same with books. Whatever book we were given in school, I wasn't interested in it unless we were reading it in class, because then we're using our class time to read a book together, and when the teacher was reading, I was able to create kind of a story in my head. I was able to visualize, but when I did it on my own, I couldn't do it. I remember sitting at the kitchen table for hours crying and reading over the same page over and over and over and over and over again, because every time I read it, I couldn't absorb anything. I couldn't retain anything, and I was crying to my dad because I was like, listen, I am not getting this. I'm not understanding this. I feel stupid. I know how to read words, but it's not sticking. It's not absorbing. And he was like, it's because you don't care about it. And I'm like, you're right, I don't care about it, so I don't want to read it, and I'm not going to read it. And so over time, he would try to give me books that he read that he liked, and that didn't work. We went an easier route with a book that pertained to one of my interests at the time. I can't even remember what it was. He taught me these lessons on how to read and how to absorb the information, and it kind of wasn't working because I wasn't really motivated for it. So he started putting dollar bills behind each chapter. So if I read a chapter, I would get $1. Now, these books didn't have very many chapters in them when I first started, but that's just because it was like, okay, I'm locked in, right? I'm gonna read to that chapter and I get a reward. I think it took a couple books. By the end of the book, even though there was $1 behind every chapter, my dad put a 20 at the very end of the book as a high value reward for reading the book. And I know this sounds very stupid to those who already like to read and never have experienced anything like this, but it was to the point where I was only getting picture books, even as an older kid. I would not read. I would not read words. That was hindering my ability to learn more knowledge and absorb new knowledge. So at one point in time, and it didn't happen with every book, but it happened enough that it was consistent and I knew I was being rewarded, so I was naturally more inclined to read. The money behind each chapter started to disappear, and it just started to go to the back of the book, so that when I finished the book, I was rewarded with that money. And a lot of the times I would use that money and go get another book that I liked, or I would use it on something that I needed at the time or wanted, or I would save it. I've always been a really good saver, so if I was given money, it wasn't being spent right away. And because my dad was doing this for me, he did it to my brother. Although my brother wouldn't read the book, he would just flip the book upside down, shake the money out of it, and go and buy something with it and not read the book. So my brother didn't really learn a valuable lesson from it, but he could naturally absorb information and retain it. He was always really good in school, whereas I was the complete opposite. It got to the point where I read a really big book, and I went to go show my dad because I was proud of myself, and he tried to hand me money, and I was like, no, I read it because I enjoyed it. And that brought tears to his eyes, because all this hard work of him trying to teach me to learn to like reading and absorbing knowledge finally paid off, literally. I didn't want his money, and I told him that. I don't want your money. I like what I'm doing. I like what I'm learning, and I don't need to be paid for it. So that turned into me progressing in my life and learning to find the things that I actually like reading. So I will say that my dad really helped me out in that sense of learning to read, because that was just something I struggled with. That learning to read became an addiction, especially when I was going through a really rough patch in my life, and that was my self-help era. I feel like I've read every single self-help book on the shelves, and I wish I would have switched to self-healing a lot sooner, because you can only help yourself so much. Everything's so mundane. It's repetition. I could just spew from all the books that I've read, which I have. A lot of the times I would give advice, especially on people that are entering or going through a self-help era. I'm like, I've been there, done that. But yeah, knowledge is power. I am obsessed with learning new things now, and I'm very grateful that that is something I like to do. I love to journal, I love to read, I love to write, I love to do my continuous learning program about things I'm passionate about. I like to learn new things. I even have so many books that I got excited about buying that I've never read. But it's crazy, books that I bought a long time ago that I didn't read, I'll pick up now and start reading, and it's pertaining to exactly the chapter I'm in my life, which is really neat. So that reminds me that everything does happen for a reason, and I bought those books for a reason, and I just didn't know that I would need them now for the knowledge that's in them. So I think that's really cool. And since I'm able to learn so much knowledge and absorb it, I'm able to help other people that might be needing it and going through the same thing, which is what I've been doing with this podcast. Is me getting knowledge through my experiences and learning opportunities. I've been able to share that with you, and I have gotten feedback from some of you that these have really helped you. They've also reminded me as I'm editing them. I'm like, oh, there's things that I'm talking about that I didn't even realize was going on in my head. Well, obviously it is going on in my head because I'm saying it out loud. It's just happening subconsciously. So sometimes when I'm editing, I'll have an epiphany and I'm like, whoa, I didn't even know that I was thinking about that. That's pretty neat. I love learning, and I love talking to people on a daily basis where I'm constantly learning and absorbing new information and new knowledge. Working at a coffee shop, you learn so much, especially from your customers. They come from all walks of life, and you get to hear their stories and learn, and some of them teach you lessons, and some teach you new experiences. Some end up reflecting some behavior that you have in yourself, and I am extremely grateful for all of those experiences. Knowledge is power. You learn to love knowledge and absorb it. It's gonna take you so far in life. Never stop learning. Find the things that interest you, find the things that you're passionate about, and go after them. Hustle. Thank you all so much for joining me on the series of 24 lessons I've learned in my 24 years of life. Thank you for being patient and waiting for the episodes to drop every week, and for giving me feedback, and for giving me the space to be able to talk about these things with all of you, and to help remind myself how far I've come in my life and how much further I'm going to go. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope you guys have a wonderful journey in your life. And if you still want to keep up with my life, you can follow me on the rest of my social media pages. It's just Hayden.Ezra. Thank you for listening and watching.